Go back to your front page. There's a difference between a debt and an obligation. I define debt a little bit differently than some people. There's a debt and an obligation. In other words, there's good debt and bad debt. An obligation is a monthly mortgage. You borrow money to buy a home, that's a debt, but it's a monthly payment obligation. You make a monthly payment. If you can't make your monthly payment, you had no business borrowing that money. That's an obligation. You trust the house is appreciating in value. You have an appreciating asset. You owe some money on it. Pay it off sooner if you can, whatever. Bad debt would be credit card debt. 60% of the people in this country have credit card debt. Credit card debt on food they've eaten, trips they've taken, clothes they've worn. That's bad debt. That's ridiculous. But it controls their life. Controls their life. Let me say this. I said it this afternoon. I get this question. There's no biblical prohibition to borrowing money. There's none. Nothing wrong with borrowing money. I've heard speakers say from a platform, it's ungodly for Christians to borrow money. That's hogwash. Guy doesn't know his Bible. There's no biblical prohibition to borrow money. You pay it back. Romans 13:6, owe no man anything, has nothing to do with money. That's the most often quoted verse. The text of Romans 13, if someone does something for you, be willing to do more for them. That's what Romans 13 is all about. It's not about money. I told the guy this afternoon, I get questions to my seminar I got a couple weeks ago. Hey, Jim, what do you do with the verse, neither a borrower nor a lender be? I got that question. I said to the guy, boy, that's great. Give us the text. He said, I don't remember. I said, I know you don't. That's Shakespeare, and he's deader than a doornail. We've come through some tough times. I've counseled short sales. I've counseled people through foreclosure. I've counseled Christians to file bankruptcy. Whoa. Yeah, you look at the circumstances. Sometimes things happen. Guys lose their jobs, whatever. They get sick. They can't work. They have no income. Sometimes we get so legalistic we can't breathe. Come on. Deal with an issue and get on with your life. How's that? I'm not opinionated, you know. Number 13, understand that tax law applies to you. Watch out for tax protesters. They're ungodly people. Our Congress can legislate taxes. That's not unconstitutional. Watch out for tax protesters. I have an obligation to pay my taxes. Matthew 22, I'm to render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. I said this morning, my bedtime reading is Master Tax Guide. Get a copy. You read it, your first two paragraphs, you'll sleep like a baby. If you understand what it says, you'll wake up every 2 hours and cry. Number 14, having an estate plan includes a will and living trust. We'll do that in a minute. All I'm saying is have a financial plan for your life. That's all I'm saying. Go to page 7. Practical tips. Let's summarize this first section. Have a budget. Get out of debt. If anything's to be learned by what we're going through as a country economically is to get your house in order. Get your house in order. Get out of debt. Get out of debt. Control credit card use. Credit cards are a great tool or a terrible master. For over 60% of the people in this country, they are a terrible master because they control their life. People, I've used credit cards for 40 years. I have never given them a dime of interest. And Lord willing, I never will. Number 4, are you 50 with little retirement set aside? Get your head out of the sand. You might have the health to work past 65. You don't know that. You don't know what God has intention for your life. Number 5, you have an up-to-date will or living trust. We'll talk about that. Number 6, be afraid of credit cards. Respect them. Respect them. Don't misuse them. Number 7, learn to procrastinate on discretionary purchases. If it's right today, it'll be right tomorrow. If it's right today, it'll be right next month. Don't be rushed into making a decision you're not prepared to make. If your conscience is working overtime about making a decision, walk away from it. You're the steward. Salesmen go to seminars to learn how to sell to us. We don't go to seminars to learn how to resist that. So we're vulnerable to that. And they're great people. They provide a valuable service, but they're there to sell. We're the steward of our money that God has entrusted to us, not a salesman. So if you're not comfortable, walk away from it. Number 8, buy a home, not a castle. Number 9, have an emergency fund and plan ahead for special events. Summary, give to the Lord's work. Start it with generosity. Number 2, take care of the needs of your family. Number 3, protect your family from a catastrophic occurrence, premature death, premature disability. Number 4, provide for your future. Have a retirement plan, have an estate plan, will or a trust. Now listen to me. If credit cards control your life, you can't do any of these. If credit cards control your life, you can't be a giver to the Lord's work. You're paying credit card bills. Not taking care of the needs of your family like you should. You can't protect your family from a catastrophic occurrence, you can't pay the premiums. Probably don't have a retirement plan. Probably don't have a will or a trust because credit cards control your life. That's why credit card use is so deadly if it's misused. And that should not be, a misuse of a credit card should not be in a Christian's vocabulary. We're here to serve Jesus Christ, not some credit card industry, not some creditor. Right? Right? Boy, you're awful quiet. Okay, next session. Will and trust. Estate planning seminar. And I'll whip through this. Stewardship is not just money, time, or talent. Stewardship is all of these and more. Stewardship is the very life God has given us. And someday we should be responsible to give an account of it all to Him. That's out of David Jeremiah's book on finance. How many of you listen to David? On television or radio or whatever? Okay. I grew up with David in Toledo. He's from Toledo. We were kids together in church. I'll tell this. I think I told it to somebody here. We were sitting on the front pew one morning, Sunday morning. I think we're 4 years old. And I brought my cap gun to church. Not smart, right? I paid for that. And I took it out of my pocket, and it went off. And a little spiral of smoke. Remember back in those days, a little spiral of smoke went up. And his dad looked down at us. He was the pastor. And I'll tell you what, he knew immediately who did it. And if looks would have killed, we'd have been dead on a doornail. He banned us to the balcony with our mothers for 30 days. I told Dave's congregation that story. Boy, they just roared laughing. He didn't laugh real loud, I remember. I love it. 2 precious freedoms, right to accumulate, right to distribute before and after you die. $250 million per week goes into probate court and designated. Millions of dollars a year go into federal and state agencies because people die without wills and without heirs. 30% of adults have a will written correctly, which means 70% do not. Less than 10% of adults have done any serious estate planning. 11 of 12 women will become widows and will be widows for an average of 11 and a half years. That's a startling statement, but it's true. Why spend 40 years acquiring an estate, 10 years trying to conserve it, but not 2 hours in what you're going to do with it when God calls you into His presence? Shake off any notion that you need to be rich before you need an estate plan. If you're like most Christians, tax considerations take a far back seat to the top priority of estate planning, taking care of your heirs in the Lord's work. What's at stake is perhaps best seen by conjuring up the mess you can leave behind if you procrastinate all the way to the grave and die without a will. Your state's rules of intestacy will provide a one-size-fits-all estate plan for you. That simply means that either you've had a will prepared or the state of Wisconsin has one prepared for you. And I assure you, you don't want to die with the state of Wisconsin passing your estate according to their laws and their wishes. Contrast that to the almost unlimited flexibility that's yours if you write a comprehensive estate plan, including a will and living trust. You have the right to name the guardian of your choice. You can slice the pie however you choose. You want grandmother's hutch to go to a favorite niece, your home to your church, no problem if you have an estate plan. Page 2. Basic terminology. This is on a will now. We're talking about a will. Testator, testatrix, the person who makes a will. Testator is a male, testatrix is a female. I'm surprised they're not using testaperson today. A will is a right that provides for the distribution of property upon the death of the writer, but which confers no rights. Prior to that time, I recommend you use an attorney. Attorney are professionals. They know the laws of the state of Wisconsin. They know the federal laws. You don't want to goof up on this one, people. You spend your life accumulating a estate. You don't want to make a mistake on how it's going to be distributed. when you could use an attorney to help prevent all that. Codicil is how you amend a will. If you have a will now, you want to make a change, you don't cross something off and write above it, you could void the whole document. You have to do a legal amendment. It's called a codicil. It requires a couple of witnesses. Community property, you do not live in a community. Yeah, you do live in a community property state. You live in a community property state. It means half of what you accumulate, I live in a community property state, California. Half of what my wife and I accumulate during our marriage belongs equally to each other. Passing your estate in Wisconsin from spouse to spouse is easy. It's a second death where it gets complex. Community property says we own it equally. One dies, the other has her half, you pass the other half to her or him. That's community property. Separate property is money that's kept in possession outside of the community property relationship. Example, my wife's dad passes away and she inherits $50,000. She takes the $50,000, puts it in her personal checking account. That becomes separate property. It's not community. She puts that $50,000 in our joint checking account, it becomes community property. Her dad dies and leaves her his house, and she leaves her name on the deed. Separate property. Has to pass according to her will or her trust. Puts my name on the deed with her name, it becomes community property. That's the difference. Probate is the act by which a proper court accepts a will and declares that the instrument satisfies the statutory requirements of the will of the person who wrote it. Until a will is probated, it has no legal effect. Probate costs vary from state to state. It can cost as much as 5 to 8%. It takes about 9 months to probate a will in most states. 3 people: executor, personal representative, guardians, trustees. Personal representative, my wife, when we had a will, today we have a trust, but when we had a will, my wife was my personal representative. I die, she takes care of the affairs of the estate. Vice versa. She dies, I take care of the affairs of the estate. We had it set up so if we both were killed in a common accident, our son was the alternate personal representative. He would have taken care of the affairs of the estate. Guardians take care of minor children. Mom and dad, you nominate guardians, you don't appoint them. A judge has the final control of appointment of guardians for minors. There was a couple in Connecticut, turn of the century. Pastor and his wife lived across the street from a member of his church. Husband and wife had a 3-year-old daughter. Husband and his wife had their will prepared, and they nominated the pastor and his wife as guardians if something was to happen to mom and dad. Mom and dad were killed in an accident. Pastor and his wife assumed they'd get the 3-year-old little girl. Lady on their block wrote a letter to social services, complaining that the pastor and his wife were religious fanatics. They were just like your pastor and his wife. Godly people, love the Lord, good church. Social services came in, took the little girl out of their home and put her in a welfare situation, foster home. Pastor and his wife challenged it in court and lost. Took it to appeals court and lost. Took it to Connecticut Supreme Court and lost. They were advised to take it to the U.S. Supreme Court. Problem with that, it'd take years to get on the docket if they ever got on the docket. By the time they got on the docket and the Supreme Court ruled, the girl's probably now an adult. So they lost control of the girl. It cost them $100,000 to try to get her. This couple wrote an article, appeared in the 2001 issue of World Magazine. In their article, they recommended 4 things when it comes to guardianship. Number 1, favor relatives over third parties wherever possible. Number 1 criteria is a godly home. You folks are here today, you grandparents are here with grandkids. You want to make sure your kids have a will for guardianship purposes if for no other reason. What happens to those precious youngsters if something happened to mom and dad? Got to start with a godly home. Number 2, develop a relationship between the child and the person you've named. We had our will and we told our 2 children if something happens to mom and dad, Uncle Don and Aunt Peg are your new mom and dad. They understood that. When it came to times when we disciplined, they wanted that to be put into force immediately. Name at least 3 potential guardians. You have a primary, alternate 1, alternate 2. Why? It'd be very difficult for a judge to turn down all 3. Very difficult. Number 4, you can write a testimony in your will why you selected the guardians you selected. You're giving the judge all the information. Remember, when it comes to that point, you're out of here. Mom and dad, you're with the Lord. Now some judge who doesn't know your family is going to make a decision on what happens to those kids. So you want him to make the decision based on the best information available. So you give him a testimony in your will that he reads. Could be spiritual reasons, family reasons, financial reasons. Trustee is a person who takes care of money for another's benefit. Minors don't inherit money. It goes into a trust fund managed by a trustee. Over the years, I've done, hundreds of these seminars, and there's a lot of people who have asked my wife and I if we'd be willing to serve as their guardians. I just said, yeah, but don't go on a cruise together in the North Atlantic and hit an iceberg. We'd have an instant orphanage. I don't know where that's at today. Probably changed it. Tenancy in common, tenancy by entirety, joint tenancy right of survivorship is how you pass ownership outside of a will or a trust. Typically, you see the third one. If you went down to your bank tomorrow and pulled your signature cards at the bank, you would see you and your spouse's name on the signature cards, probably with initials JTRS, joint tenancy with right of survivorship. That simply means if one dies, survivor has immediate access and immediate ownership. Probably see it on the deeds of your home with the little initials, JTRS, joint tenancy with right of survivorship. State tax is everything tax. That's an excise tax levied on the transfer of a person's property by the federal government. This has gone through major changes in recent years. Unified credit now is $5.3 million. You have to have an excess of $5.3 million to pass your heirs before it's taxed. It's a lot of money. When I started this, it was $250,000. The only thing that's taxed now is pension plans. Remember, pension plans are tax deferred. So someone's going to pay tax on a pension plan at some point in time. Here's what I tell people I counsel with. Let's say you're worth $600,000, value of a home, pension plan, all that. And the pension plan is worth $200,000. You want to give a third of your estate to your church. What third do you give to the church? The pension plan. Churches don't pay tax. If your kids inherit that third, they're going to pay income tax on it. So give the pension plan to the church and the other 2/3 to the children, tax-free. Inheritance tax, state death tax. Many states have gotten rid of inheritance taxes. I'm not sure about Wisconsin. Page 3. I won't go through this. You can read some of this on your own. What happens if you don't have a will? You die intestate. That's the middle of the page. If you have a will now, check to see at the bottom, has there been a change in your marital status? Second marriages get very complex. 2 spouses pass away, surviving spouses get married, now you got 2 families involved. That takes some good counsel to work through that. Has there been a change in your health status? Maybe you've been diagnosed with a disease. Make sure your estate planning house is in order. You don't want to leave a mess for your spouse. Have you moved to another state since making your will? Wills are a state-by-state issue. If you had your will drafted in Michigan, you want to have it reviewed, make sure it meets Wisconsin requirements. Number 4, your beneficiary is still living, still worthy. You might want to make a change. My wife and I sit down every other holiday while we're watching the bowl games, and we read through our estate planning to make sure it still does what we want it to do, just as a reminder. Number 5, you want to keep the same executor, guardian, or trustee. Number 6, do you still own the specific properties that were mentioned? I did an estate planning seminar in Idaho. There was a guy that was a widower. He had 2 apartment buildings. He had 2 sons. He dies, each son gets an apartment building. He sold the one apartment building, forgot to amend his estate planning. So he saw this thing, a light went on, so he went down and had his thing change. Number 7, is your family secure enough to permit you to switch some bequests from them to charitable organizations? My son-in-law is a physician. My son's CPA. We told our 2 kids, as you get on financially, we're probably going to leave less to you and more to the Lord's work. They won't come to my seminars anymore. They think they're getting their legs cut off. Number 8, you may need to review your will or trust with your attorney. Page 4. I did a estate planning seminar in Montana, Kalispell, Montana, 25 years ago. 2 women had become widows within probably a couple weeks before I got there. They asked me to stay another day and meet with the widows and work with them. They didn't know what to do. So I got home that Tuesday night, sat down with my wife, dining room table. I said, honey, we need to put together a checklist. We put this together. My wife and I answered all these questions. Folks, we took all the documents that pertain to our marriage. Started with a marriage certificate, life insurance policies, title to the cars, deed to the property, pension plan documents, put them in a pile, wrap the rubber band around it. Answered all these questions on a piece of 8.5 by 14 yellow pad paper. Wrap these answers around those documents, put it in our safe deposit box. I pass away. My wife goes to the safe deposit box, gets out the documents, puts them on the dining room table, grieves. Oh, she's rolling her eyes. It's going to be a long drive to St. Louis tomorrow. She knows where everything is at. She knows exactly what she has to do. It's all right there. And we talk about it. My wife and I are killed in a common accident tomorrow. My son's the successor trustee. He's on the signature card of the safe deposit box. He goes to the safe deposit box, gets out the documents. He knows where everything is at. He knows exactly what he has to do. It's pretty slick. Every one of you need to do this with your spouse. You just set that thing up. Go through this checklist together. Look at the bottom statement. Too often a lot of time and money could be spared to a departed spouse could return for 20 minutes and answer a few simple questions. Number 5. Let's talk about the living trust. My wife and I were concerned about the cost of probate and the delay of probate. We didn't want the government in charge of our estate after we pass away. The answer to that is revocable family trust. My wife and I had an attorney prepare a revocable family trust for us. We're the co-trustees. We control the trust. I die, my wife is survivor trustee, nothing changes. We can change it at any time we want. It's revocable. It's changeable. My wife and I both die, my son's successor trustee. He cannot change the trust. He can only carry out the wishes and what we told him to do in the trust. We then funded the trust with our deeded entitled assets. My wife and I don't own our condominium in California anymore. It's owned by the Rickard family trust. We pay the taxes. If I had a mortgage, we'd pay the mortgage. We'd deduct the interest on our tax return. We would deduct the real estate taxes on our tax return. Nothing changes, except we don't legally own it. The Rickard family trust owns it. We changed our checking account. Our checks say Rickard Family Trust, James W., Joan E. Rickard trustees. Our savings account, Rickard Family Trust. Beneficiary of my life insurance, if I still had it, would be my wife. Oh, excuse me, it would be the trust, not my wife. Why is that? Let's say I have a $500,000 life insurance policy. I die. She inherits the money. She puts it in her checking account. She dies. The purpose of a trust is it circumvents probate. She puts that money in her personal checking account, then she dies, you're back to probate. How do you get the $500,000 into the trust? Probate. So you're back to probate. So the beneficiary of the life insurance should be the trust. There are advantages to that. Look at your page 5. The advantage of a revocable living trust, it bypasses probate. Things that you have in your living trust are not probated. You just took the government out of your life. There will be minimal or no attorney fees at death. The attorney fees are when you had the trust prepared. Letter C, distribution can take place immediately. My wife and I get killed tomorrow. As soon as my son hears that, gets the documents, as soon as he converts issues to cash, he can begin distributing it. Some to him, some to his sister, some to the Lord's work. There's no delay. Letter D, you can revoke it or change it at any time. My wife or I can change our trust at any time. At the second death, it's cast in concrete. It cannot be changed. That's the second death. Letter E, it's confidential. If one of you pass away this week, any one of us could go down to county courthouse, get a copy of your will if you had one. It's a matter of public record. Trusts are confidential. They're confidential to the trustees and to the heirs. That's pretty neat right there. Letter F, very difficult to successfully contest a trust. Very difficult. Because it's a trust. Let me tell you this way. If you die with a will, either prepared by you or the state of Wisconsin, you're passing the ownership of your assets under probate law. Probate's involved. The court's involved. If you have a living trust and you die, you pass the ownership of your assets under contract law. My wife and I have written a legal binding contract honored by all 50 states. It's a contract. honored by all 50 states. Let's say you're a snowbird. You live part of the time here and part of the time in Arizona or Florida. You have a home in Arizona, a home in Wisconsin. You die with a will. You got probate in Arizona, you got probate in Wisconsin, you got an attorney in Arizona, you got an attorney in Wisconsin. Let's say you have a living trust, and you put the two homes in the living trust, and you die. There's no probate in either state, there's no attorney needed in either state. It passes by contract. That's huge. What are the disadvantages? All property used to be distributed to the trust must be put into the trust. You have to fund the trust. An attorney will help you do that. The trust must be maintained over your lifetime. You got to remember, you sell your home, you buy another home, you buy it into the trust. Typically, I'll stay at someone's home when I'm traveling. And I do an estate planning seminar, and I go to their home at night after church, and they'll say, would you look at our trust? Sure, I'll look at it. It's a good document. Let me ask you one question. Show me one of your blank checks. And they show me their check, and it's their husband and wife's names on the check. I said, you haven't put the checking account into the trust. So if you die with money in the checking account, the second death, you got to have probate to get the money into the trust. Who's on the deed to your property? Well, my wife and I. Not the trust? Well, no, you haven't funded the trust. You're back to probate. Letter C, it's more expensive to create. Wills, $300 to $500. Trust, $750 to a couple thousand, depending on how complex you are. You find an attorney and find out what he charges. You should be able to get it done for between $750 and $1,250. Moody Bible Institute's just down the road. Call Moody Bible Institute's Development Department. They'll give you the name of an attorney in Racine. Maybe you know somebody in Racine who's a believer who would do a living trust. You find attorneys by referral. You don't go to the yellow pages. Go to the next page. Powers of attorney. We're almost finished. Powers of attorney. Third one and fourth one, healthcare and durable. My dad died of a heart attack in 1986. 1984, I was visiting him in Michigan. He said to me, son, I know I'm not going to live long. I want to give you my health care power of attorney. I don't want to be on life support. I said, okay, Dad, I'll take care of that. So he gave me his health care power of attorney, has his heart attack. I come to the hospital. He's in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I meet with two cardiologists. He's brain dead. Meet with my mother, my brother, my sister, and I said, we need to unplug him. Dad did not want to be on life support. We unplugged him. We had to be in the room when they did it. Pretty slick. 5 years later, my mother's diagnosed with dementia. My brother calls me. She's living in Cedarville. My brother was the vice president of Cedarville. I said, Don, go down and get her durable power of attorney, DPOA. My brother went down and got her durable power of attorney. Mom signed it because she was still competent. My brother transacted business for my mother until she died because he had her durable power of attorney. Means durable through incapacitation. Now you got the HIPAA agreement. Go down to the last one. HIPAA, that's relatively new. People, do you realize that if you're traveling, let's say I'm traveling, let's say I'm in Jacksonville, Florida, and I have a health issue, and I'm hospitalized. Do you know that my wife cannot get access to my health condition without a signed HIPAA agreement? Are you aware of that? That goes for everybody in this room. So when our attorney prepared our trust for us, he prepared HIPAA agreements for my wife and I. We signed them. We copied them. Two sets in my glove box of my car, glove box of her car. My daughter has a set. My son has a set. My wife or I are hospitalized anywhere in America, anywhere in the world really, but particularly in America because it's a law in America. My kids can get access, or my spouse can get access to my health condition. All they have to do is email or fax a copy of the HIPAA agreement to the hospital or the doctor. Not many people are aware of that law. That's been in place since about 2007. So you got wills. You got a pour over will. Let's say you have a living trust and you got minors. The minors have to be handled through a will because a trust does not require a judge. A will does. Guardianship requires a judge. So the guardianship issue would be taken care of through a POUR over will, pour over will. That's how that's done. All this information is on those 2 CDs out there. So they're out there. They're $20. They're available to you if you want them. And I don't care if you share them. That's okay with me. I just want to get the information out there. So you've got wills, you've got trusts, you've got pour-over wills, you've got durable power of health, durable power of attorney, you got the HIPAA agreement. A lot of issues, folks. And it doesn't help to ignore it. It doesn't help to procrastinate. We're all going to face them. I have faced all but the HIPAA agreement issue. Durable power of health, my dad. Durable power of attorney, my mother. Pour over will, all done. Living trust, all done. You'll face it too. Not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So good stewardship says I get that taken care of. Amen? Okay, we've talked about a lot today. Probably have overwhelmed you just a little bit, but I've enjoyed it. You've been good to speak to. Good group, good church. Love that music. Where's this music guy at? Is he still in here? Good job, really. I'm serious. Travel with me. Believe me. I'll tell you what, and some of it's off the wall. Got to scrape the people off the ceiling to get them ready for worship. I appreciate it. Godly stuff. Thank you, sir. All right. Father, thank you for our Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ. Thank you for who you are. Thank you for the wonderful privilege we have of knowing you as our personal Savior. Thank you for this wonderful church, for its leadership. God, help us to be faithful to all that we need to be faithful to. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Thank you.